The Temple Mount, what we know is the focal point of interreligious tension for decades to both Jews and Muslims in Jerusalem's Old City. And in today's video, we are going to talk about the path that leads to this sacred spot, as well as the hidden archaeology of the Temple Mount. Let's find out in today's video on the unknown fact. The Temple Mount is the raised plaza in Jerusalem above the Western Wall. It was where both the Judaism's old temple stood. The site is also the third holiest place in Islam after Mecca and Medina. For decades, it has been a source of tension between different religions. At the moment, the site is owned by Israel, but it is run by the Muslim Waqf. Jews and other non-Muslims can go there, but Jewish prayer isn't allowed. So let's watch the video to see how to get into the Temple Mount. Magharibah Gate. The Moors Gate, also called Magharibah Gate, is the most southern gate on the western side of the compound. It was built right on top of the Herodian-era gate called the Gate of the Prophet, which is also called Barclay's Gate after James Turner Barclay. People think that the current gate was built by the Ayyubids. During Mamluk rule, it was fixed up and connected to the western part of the complex. Around the time that the Ayyubids gave the quarter to North Africans, Moors from Andalusia, and Malachites who were living together in Jerusalem, the gate was built. The Magharibah, which is what these communities were called in Arabic, lived in this area until 1967, when Israel tore down the quarter to build the Western Wall Plaza, where Jews could pray. About 130 North Africans who had lived in the area since Saladin's time had to move because their homes were destroyed. Over time, the ground outside the Magharibah gate rose many meters above its threshold, and in the 10th century, the Gate of the Prophet, also called Barclay's Gate, was finally walled off. At some point, a new gate called Bab al-Magharibah was built in Al-Buraq Wall, above the Gate of the Prophet at the level of the compound esplanade. It was named after the people who lived in the neighborhood next to it. They came to Jerusalem from the Maghreb when Saladin was in power. This gate is still open today. Since 1967, it has been the only way for non-Muslims to get into the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Since 1967, Muslims haven't been able to use this gate. Even though the Islamic Waqf organization owns the keys to the gates of the Al-Aqsa compound, the keys to the Al-Magharibah gate were taken by Israel in 1967 and are still in their hands today. The excavation of the old ramp leading up to the gate has been a source of disagreement between Arab Muslims and Israelis. In February 2004, part of the wall that held up the 800-year-old ramp that led up from the Al-Buraq Wall or Western Wall to the Magharibah Gate fell down. Israeli officials thought that a recent earthquake and snowfall might be to blame, while Hamas and Muslim officials said that the collapse was caused by Israeli workers in the area. The Magharibah Gate is the only way for people who are not Muslims to get into the site. If it is closed, Jews and tourists won't be able to go until a new building is built. From the plaza by the Western Wall, the ramp leads up to the next-door compound, which Muslims call Haram al-Sharif. Inside Haram al-Sharif is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is the third holiest place in Islam. It is known that Israel has been digging in an area outside the compound. This has led to accusations that they are trying to destroy the mosque, which is the third holiest site in Islam. In 2007, the Israel Antiquities Authority built a temporary wooden bridge to the Magharibah Gate so that people could walk there. No one could agree on a structure that would last longer. Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is the walled-in area in the southeast corner of the old city of Jerusalem that looks like a trapezoid. The lower parts of the four walls that surround it go back to when the second Jewish temple was built at the end of the 1st century BCE. Large walls, some of which are buried underground, were built around the top of the eastern hill, which is known as Mount Moriah. This is the place where Abraham is thought to have sacrificed his son Isaac and where the two Jewish temples were built. Filling in the spaces between the walls and the mount made a large area around the temple. Its eastern wall and the eastern half of its southern wall are part of the city wall on those sides. Outside the city walls, to the northeast, east, south, and west, there are deep valleys that are now partly filled with trash. This makes the Temple Mount separate from and higher than its surroundings, both inside and outside the city. The size of the Temple Mount is much bigger than what is said in the Mishnah, which talks about a square that is about 250 meters by 250 meters, and only refers to the holy area of the Temple Mount as it is known today. The whole enclosure is made up of an esplanade or courtyard that surrounds an elevated platform. The platform is on about 36 acres of land and is decorated with arched structures. There are several gates in each wall. Some of the gates are very old and can't be used anymore, like the Golden Gate. Other gates were built after the Arabs took over the city and can still be used. In the area of the Temple Mount, there are about 100 different buildings from different times. Some of them are great works of art and craftsmanship, like open Muslim prayer areas, arches, arched porticos, Muslim religious schools, minarets, and fountains, some for drinking and others for worshippers to wash their hands and feet before prayer. There are 34 cisterns under the surface of the mount, in the parts that were made by people. There are also smaller buildings inside, with Solomon's stables being the biggest. Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock, or Qubat al-Aqra in Arabic, is an Islamic shrine on the Temple Mount in the Old City of Jerusalem. Muslims also call this area the Al-Haram al-Sharif, or the Al-Aqsa compound. It was first built by the Umayyad Caliphate at Abdi al-Request Malik's during the Second Fitna in 691 to 692 CE. Since then, it has been built on the site of the Second Jewish Temple, which was built around 516 BCE to replace Solomon's Temple and was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. The first dome fell in 1015, and it was rebuilt between 1022 and 1023. Its architecture and mosaics were based on those of nearby Byzantine churches and palaces. However, its exterior changed a lot during the Ottoman era and again in the modern era, especially when the gold-plated roof was added in 1959-61 and again in 1993. The octagonal shape of the building may have been inspired by the Church of the Seed of Mary, which was built between 451 and 458 on the road between Jerusalem and Bethlehem during the Byzantine era. This church was also called Kathisma in Greek and Al-Kadizmu in Arabic. The foundation stone, also called the Noble Rock, is the rock on which the temple was built. In the Abrahamic religions, this is the place where God made the world and Adam the first person. It is also thought to be the place where Abraham tried to sacrifice his son, and where God's presence is felt more than anywhere else. When Jews pray, they turn towards this place. Muslims give the site a lot of importance because of stories that link it to the creation of the world, and because they believe that Muhammad's night journey began at the rock in the middle of the structure. It is a World Heritage Site and has been called Jerusalem's most famous landmark, along with the Western Wall and the Resurrection Rotunda in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which are also in the Old City. Part of the dome cut in half. The main shape of the building is an 8. It has a dome in the middle that is about 20 meters in diameter and is mounted on a raised circular drum that stands on 16 supports. An arcade with 24 piers and columns forms an octagon around this circle. The inner circular drum and the octagonal arcade make an inner ambulatorium that goes around the Holy Rock. The walls on the outside are also round. They are each about 18 meters wide and 11 meters tall. The outer and inner octagons make a second ambulatorium outside of the one inside. There are many windows in both the round drum and the outside walls. The inside of the dome is full of mosaics, faience, and marble, most of which were added hundreds of years after it was built. It also has writings from the Quran. They are different from the standard text we use today, mostly because they switch from the first person to the third person. They also have religious writings that are not in the Quran. The name of the caliph who built the dome, Al-Malik, was taken out and replaced with the name of Abbasid Caliph Al-Mamun, who ruled from 813 to 833 and oversaw renovations. The outer walls were decorated in two main ways. The first Umayyad style was made of marble and mosaics, just like the interior walls. Surah Yasin, which means Heart of the Quran, is written across the top of the tilework. Suleiman the Magnificent had it made in the 1600s. Above this is written Surah 17, which tells the story of the Isra, or night journey. Well of Souls. The Well of Souls is a cave inside the foundation stone under the Dome of the Rock shrine on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Part of the cave is natural, and some of it was made by people. During the time of the Crusaders, Christians called it the Holy of Holies. This was a reference to the inner sanctum of the old Jewish temple, which, according to modern research, was probably on top of the foundation stone. The name Well of Souls comes from an Islamic legend from the Middle Ages that says you can hear the spirits of the dead waiting for Judgment Day here. However, this is not a common belief in Sunni Islam. Golden Gate, Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third most important place in Islam, after the Kaaba in Mecca and the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. It is at the south end of the Temple Mount platform. It was last rebuilt in 1035, and since then it has been fixed up several times, most recently from 1938 to 1942, and again starting in 1969. The building is shaped like a basilica, with a narrow center aisle and 6 side aisles, 14 aisles in an earlier 8th century phase. The Sultan Salah al-Din gave the decorations for the prayer niche mihrab in the south wall Saladin. The beautiful inlaid cedar wood pulpit, which Salah al-Din also gave to the mosque, burned down in the fire of 1969. A staircase in front of the north entrance to the Al-Aqsa Mosque leads down to a vaulted passageway and the walled-up Hulda Gates, which were an entrance to the Temple Mount platform during the time of the Herodian Second Temple. Until the middle of the 19th century, non-Muslims were not allowed in the Haram during the Mamluk and Ottoman periods. The Ottoman Sultan made the first known exception in 1862, when the Prince of Wales, who would become King Edward VII, was there. Golden Gate. The Golden Gate, or Gate of Mercy, is the only eastern gate of the Temple Mount, and one of only 2 gates of the old city of Jerusalem that used to let people into the city from the east side. Since the Middle Ages, the gate has been locked. From the Temple Mount, you can get to its inside. Jews believe that the Messiah will come from the Mount of Olives and enter Jerusalem through this gate. Christians and Muslims both believe that Jesus entered Jerusalem through this gate. Israeli officials closed off the Golden Gate from inside the Temple Mount in 2003 because the group in charge of the area had ties to Hamas. The Islamic Walk kept the gate closed to stop people from building there without permission. Israeli officials think that the work destroyed artifacts from the time when Jews lived in the area. So that was all about the video. Hope you find it informative. Then do subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and press the bell icon for more updates like this.